That was wonderful. Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. And we're going to be taking a look at 17's highlight, but this is the 13-member version choreography video. Now, I do know sometimes whenever we encounter different comebacks from 17, one member may be injured or sick during the time of a recording. So whenever I do have the option between watching a choreography content video versus the dance practice with all members, I will prefer to watch all members because that would help me understand the true scope of how the choreography, dynamics, levels, and formations were supposed to be originally structured for the track. So without further ado, let's get started. Two of them album covers at the bottom. wonderful. That was wonderful. I would say based on all the ones that I've seen thus far, because remember, I've only seen God of Music and then all of the dance practices and choreography up until this era, that was my favorite choreography, just choreographic in general. Okay, starting from the top, I hope they stick with this I don't know if it's the same choreographer that they've had before. I love how this choreographer hits this aesthetic of music. So I hope when they do this concept, they use this choreographer. This is wonderful. How it starts at the beginning. Right here is the slow walk. I really love the simplicity of this, but I really want to take note of something. He ends up doing this near the bridge, and it's really hard to do whenever you have to reset a type of visual you want to hit. Not only that, but whenever you're exuding so much energy throughout the entire routine and then you have to stop and do a freeze frame, that mess is really hard to do when you have to control your breathing, especially if you have to sing this, that, or the other. So that's very impressive, and I love the imagery that we're seeing here. As we finish it up, and then you have everybody slowly move their head down. Everything's structured. They don't move until his hand touches the shoulder. So it's great timing on his part. He touches the shoulder, turns everybody around. Now you have your first feature. He was a surprise because you didn't really know who you were going to expect. And originally, because he was the one who moved differently than everybody else, he put his hand and actually used his hand. That would be who you were naturally drawn to. But when he turned everybody around, this is why he kind of caught you off guard, but in a good way, not in a, ooh, I didn't know he was a feature, like you're trying to find him, but it's a, oh, I found him and I wasn't expecting it. So there's the difference there, and I really love that. And I love that boom, really love his choice to hit that little of the hi-hat. That was nice too. As he bleeds down, looks up, everybody's head and chest matches with the breathe. And then when you have da 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 da, it sounds like multiple people, multiple harmonies. So it was really nice that everybody chose to do that there versus just one person, because it matches your music on that scale. So fun. New feature. Now we have somebody down towards the floor. We have a level that's justified up at the top, but they're all connected. Still having your feature move across, but then you have everybody reacting to him on the different parts of the music. So this is so musicality heavy. This is going to be a long video. I just feel it because, or I'm trying to talk quickly because there's so much to glean off of this, and I don't want this to be like an hour long. So whenever they move over with the head, he is looking over, so they're looking what he's looking at. But then it's nice where he sets himself up because it looks like the point of the double diagonal, and seeing how this hits on the, it goes dun da da, so it's syncopated. So it wasn't like a 5 and 6. It's like a bump ba da. So it was just very, very tasteful, that choice of musicality. Normally you see that happen on the bass or on the beats whenever you see this type of ripple, but they did it on his tone or how he sings it. So that means that not only do they have the responsibility of hitting the musicality on the back end, they also have to make sure that they're hitting the tone or hitting how he's completing his phrases live. So that means he also has to make sure he's stable enough to hit that phrasing consistently in order for that to show up well if they choose to perform this live. And I love where they go dun da da, reset to the other side, now having your other feature that was down on the ground back in with the group. He circles around to get ready to go right here. 3, 4, right there. Da 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 da. So it was really nice how they're building onto it, so nothing strong, and then isolate to hit on that tone. Still groovy right there. Do 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 do, and then they're picking not random, but it's very strategic in how they're choosing to go into the other layers that they're trying to justify in this phrase work. I love that. Doon doon doon, just really nice, intricate, intimate in the movement, which is nice. It makes you curious about where they're going with it. Now you have, I love this. Everybody drops down, having your 2 frame with your feature. They go in the interlock. But it doesn't look forced. It just looks choreographic, and it looks tasteful, and it doesn't look like they struggled to do it. It just feels, this is when we do this, you know, and there's not a, oh, I hope I get there. There wasn't that, and that's great. And I love how he chooses to bring them around and having everybody go out, and then they're hitting the other layers. So there's a polyrhythmic intention happening here with their levels, dynamics, as well as you have some people, my lower half people, they are interpreting more of the back bass or the back beats. Then you have your feature with who he's being framed by. They're hitting his lyrics, his tone, and they're complementing each other. And that's just one thing that I'm always really, really happy to see. My one note is that we're going to chalk it up to It could just be length of arm or what, but his is slightly higher. Could be hyperextension too. We don't know. It could just be placement of where he has it on his arm, but he is the same height. So we're going to presume that one of them just has his placement on his arm a little bit off to where it created this angle. So it's not quite 100% as symmetrical as it needed to be there. But it was nice to grow. So one of them slid their hand and one of them just grabbed. So that would be another note, making sure that if you're going to choose to trace, go ahead and trace 100% of the way. Or if you're not, make sure that you get that timing right. But personally, trace is going to lead you to a more cleaner effect because you have contact with the arm. And so it makes it easier to make, if somebody's trying to be symmetrical to you, you know at what point you're supposed to be where. And the other aspects of your arm are going to look cleaner because you're hitting it. There's no gap or range to get lost in. So it was nice they chose to reset here. At first, I'm going to be honest, I was like, where are all the other members? Because this is obviously not 13. I mean, they're counting like 6 or 7, right? So I was like, oh no, did they lie in the video? Did I just say my intro that we're going to watch all 13 and I'm just watching 6? That would be so lame. But we see them, just not here. So it's really cool to see this. I'm assuming they have a performance team. This would be your performance team maybe. So now they all roll to the floor, revealing your next feature. Really nice. That was so nice, very quick. And then they chose to do a speed change with the arm, and they're making contact with the arm versus looking out. And that's really nice because it helps you be able to look at your feature because he's the only one looking front, and they're all continuing the rotation with their head committed, not just their body. And I love that. And they throw it on po, so he like throws it. It's more like a crescendo to day crescendo, right? And so it was nice to go from a crescendo to a day crescendo whenever you hear it or whenever you see that in music. It looks like that. That slide right there is super fun. I love how they went slide low and then they built it up a little bit higher, but they're still squatted, and then they run over and they reach up. But the only person who didn't reach was my next feature. So I think that was a good call. Do I think he could have done this but then dropped fast or made a different choice? Possibly, but I don't think that was a big enough issue to matter here. It was really nice to see. Then whenever you have everybody still facing away, obvious who your feature is. Love that. Now he's able to do things that are more marked, but everybody is able to go up, look, and refine. That breakthrough. Doom, doom, doom. Freaking nice. The buildup is so great. One person noticed that he used his arm to help bring everyone's head forward. That's what made your eyes dart to him. And that's what you want because he is obviously our next feature that we're about to see. So the turnaround on this is really, really fast in terms of your features and who you're looking at. So it's very important that you choose how you feature your dancers wisely or your performers or who's singing wisely. So it's nice he had just more of that shout. Now he's back in it doing the choreography. Now you have your new feature. He has red hair. So naturally you're going to cater more towards looking at him when he's towards the front because of his hair is so vibrant. And we normally don't see a lot of people with that shade of hair, right? In comparison to black or brown, things like that. But the build-up's really nice, very clean. Da, 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 da. So it's very nice that they're traveling, having a more chill, laid-back groove in the back pocket, and then they drip it down, making sure they're engaging their core to hinge at the hips, to drop, and continuing with the intricacies and the polyrhythmicness of the angles that they're choosing to do. And it's really impressive because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, very impressive that they're operating with even numbers right here because I never once thought, ooh, this looked off. Fabulous job on the choreographer's part on the formations of this because it is trickier to set even numbers than odd numbers. So yeah, I love that. Doom, doom, doom. Really nice, super subtle. Only person who did not turn, he did a subtle kick to turn them around. It feels like a fingerprint of 17. They like to do the kick with the turn. I love it, but that was so subtle. It wasn't really a moment. It was just a transition, and I loved it. Now, he's the only one that is here. Everybody's down and low. Then you have one of them rebound around to keep going and be featured. So it's really nice that they are framing each other here. Do I wish they split center? Possibly because you are operating with 8, but because it just happened within not even an 8 count, I don't think that's a big enough reason to actually make it a critique. Then you have your other members walk on the sides. My only note is, if you really want to really showcase uniformity instead of just walking pedestrian-esque, but it kind of works in this because my center people, my middle group, They're also not walking on tempo. If they were walking on tempo and they weren't, they would have stuck out more. But because they transitioned not on tempo with their pedestrian walk, them pedestrian walking on the sides tailored more into the aesthetic and the tone that they had already set. Whew, this is so much. I'm trying to talk so fast. Okay, how they chose to frame it. That's why that's symmetrical. That looks so freaking symmetrical, and nobody was sacrificed behind my features because it was an even number. Now they're running, basket run. I gotta turn this down. And then they go highlight. So now we ran in, and then I don't know what happened. It was we're here, so we have 5, right? So they ran 2, 3, 4. So they switched out people. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new additions, 3 people that were a part of the old. That was a seamless transition. That's low-key inspiring. I kind of want to, I may use that in something one day. I'll tell my kids though. If I do, I'll be like, look, I got this from 17. So whoever choreographed this set, brilliant. That is brilliant. They go highlight. So it goes high and then light, light in the sky a lot of times. That right there. Kick, 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 boom. That was a really nice just hinge with the arms. It's different with the 2 hits there too. Yeah, and then you have just your typical kind of like a rebound movement that we normally see in a course, but it's very tasteful because they set it up so beautifully. The course is satisfying. Now, if the course was the only thing that was clean and everything else just felt a bit muddled, you wouldn't appreciate it as much, but because they've set it up from the forefront all the way to the end, very thorough and thoughtful as to how they're going to go about executing this. It's so nice to watch. It really is. Highlight, 3, 4. So it goes 1, 2. On 3, he snaps up. Then he accents with the elbows, causing the transition to take place. So now you still maintain your feature, but he's not disconnecting from what's happening. He's now choosing to play a puppeteer role and causing them to be controlled by him. And I love that. That doon, doon, doon. And then they have that nice little sound. And they chose to, I think they chose to interpret it through, what kind of technique was that? Oh, he chose to do wave. Do-do-do. I love that feature. Do-do-do. And then they go, just how they hit it. It's powerful, but not too powerful. Because that type of beat was more on the tenor side versus a really heavy bass. So you don't need as many people to justify it because it's higher on the register. So it's not as full, right? And so it's still wonderful. So you don't need quite as much movement or fullness of your body to really interpret that. So it was great to have that upper half be able to hit and transition. I love that with the pull in. Do I think they need to pull in a little bit more with the body? Personally, yes, but that was still very nice. It's just really nice and tasteful for them to kind of hit through. That little highlight, that groove right here with the 3. Everybody looking in instead of just being still. I love that. Like everyone's involved, even if they're not being featured or being a part of the add-on yet. I love that. That is so it's just so thorough. This is so freaking thorough and I love it so much. And so now they all join in. And it's important, there's sometimes if you're choosing to do the shoulders up and down versus a circular chest rotation, it does read differently. So if we look here, let me see if everybody's actually doing that. So if you look, everybody's choosing to use a subtle chest. That's important because sometimes you'll see people just use their shoulders. It has more of a staccato or more of a rebound aesthetic to the shoulders, but with the chest, it's more legato. It's more subtle. They're able to ride it out a little bit more, and them looking down is actually a part of the aesthetic, not because they're tired. And so I love that. That right there. And then they snap down with the hands and the head. And so whenever they're here, your eyes are already looking at the subtlety of the chest. So when they snap it down, the head and the arms are framing what the chest has done. And so that's why you see it as more complete of emotion, or you see them both at the same time because of that chest. You were already looking there to begin with. That frame, and then he just does something subtle with his hand. Everybody drops, comes back up. Love that. They all now still not just popping back up, they stay midline and then they travel up. So they're justifying a different level while they're there and then coming back up to reset. That right there. Ding, ding, ding. Super clean. It's subtle. I would say my one note is one of my dancers in the back. He didn't quite utilize his range as efficiently as my guy in front did. That's just a really basic, simple note. Goes back to my very thing. I think I only did not say it in one video so far. I'm going to keep saying it every time I see it. There's always an instance in a 17 routine, but that doesn't discredit anything that I'm talking about. where the content is clean, but the range of the content is not as clean as it could be in certain aspects. Not about the whole routine, because most of the time they're very crisp and clean, but it's little instances like this where they're writing, or they're doing texture shifts, or they're writing different grooves, or they're loudness and softness of their execution. That is what is slightly off. And you see it here when you have your members of 17 who are not in the dance, who don't carry the dancer role, right? Like that's not their main role, but you see them with people who cater more towards that side. Honestly, all of them can hold their own, and I would equate all of them as dancers because they're all doing it. Now, do I feel like that's their strength? Honestly, I think it just is in the eye of the beholder. Personally, I think if you're able to execute, if you have an ear and you're able to properly represent and justify a track like this, I think you're definitely on the right track of being an artist. But I think some people have more passion being a singer or being a rapper or being, with fashion than they are as dance. And some people cater more towards being an artist, or they feel more like an artist when they are dancing versus singing. So it just depends on your preference, and not everybody's the same, and not everybody should be the same. Just because you're a good dancer doesn't mean your heart as an artist, as a dancer, is the same. You may just, maybe the track or the music production of it, you feel more of an artist that way. So that's just a little side note, but that's just my little thing. I love how we hit there. Everybody goes in, doo-doo. I love this, bring it in, tracking it up. That was super nice use of a repeated groove to traveling up the arms, because my eyes were able to digest the information and what part of the music they were trying to hit. That right there, June, and then he hits the piano. I love that ding, ding, which is similar to how they chose to point in the chorus, but it's just more subtle because he took a piano hand instead of points. And so I just love that. So subtle, matches the tonal color. So it's the instrumentation sound context in comparison to just a choice. It helped with the transition as well. To help tailor in what we saw in the chorus, but also showcase him as a feature, but also match the music beautifully. So now, that right there, that lift was super nice where they went down and they used that as a prep. Normally people go down, up. They didn't need to because they were already down to set it up. And then they went up. And they had to be super subtle, and they chose to dynamicify it after going through with the speed change to come out. Now we have one of our features here. This is one of the most subtle, like everybody's walking away. I love it that they're being intentional, being respectful on the sides, not doing anything, not cutting up unless it's the concept calls for it. Very, very professional, because they know what time and place it is appropriate to cut up, be themselves, vibe it out, and then they also know when they need to really be engaging when they're on that camera. They have to make sure they are maintaining the character or maintaining the tone and presence that they're presenting as artists. I love it. So here, I know he's kind of having his own moment here, and I love the fact that we have this break. Helps you appreciate it because they could pop off. They're choosing not to because they already justified their competence earlier on in the set. Yeah, so they back it up. Now you have your three come back on, and they slide back in, da-da-da, and then they break it down, but then you have one of them, that is your feature. He does not have his arm up or his leg all the way up. So he's not in the full range, but it works because it's still complementary to what the others are doing. Yeah, just how they choose to walk forward. Super fun. It's very subtle, very nice. It's a nice breather for me as an audience member watching and observing. You could tell it finally gives me time to breathe a little bit. I love that there whenever they do the body roll. He's still being featured, so he doesn't drop as much because that can affect your lung capacity or your vocalization through that. And I don't think he needs to because it's a way to still showcase they're framing him. He's still doing it, but it's more of they're channeling different levels. And he also there, all of them did both. He did one. That was nice. They traveled it back. He's still showcasing he's the feature. Even though he had a hat, another member has a hat on. He has a different type of hat. He uses it. He just does different mannerisms with his hands that are still complementative to who is framing him. But also it's not taking away either. It's collaborative. And that's what I really love about 17 is their features. Very rarely are they not isolated. I would say that's one of the first times I've seen an isolated member be featured. There's normally always 2 or 3. So that was like 2 8 counts of one person. I'm not used to that, which just speaks volumes of I'm already 5, 6 deep. And this is one of the first times I'm seeing it. Phenomenal. Like they're just the whole team affiliated with this group is just, this is just wonderful and such a wonderful time for me to be able to glean so much inspiration off of this. And just whenever I love this where he goes down, you don't see this add-on or you don't see this reaction or fixed point perspective until you see the second one and you see one got left behind and then crossed over. That was so smart on the choreographer because it really enhances or makes that so much more creative. Yeah, and so technically we haven't had all 13 members besides one transition all on stage. So that's kind of cool. This was really nice where they're now used as a column to separate two different spaces. So now there's nothing happening over here, which means we may have something happen over here. I don't quite remember. But now you have one person here. They're still enhancing what they did in the first verse build up in the first pre-chorus. So that's really nice. Yeah, and then they still slide through the same choreo that we've seen, but I love the staging of it where it makes it look so different. So now you have five of them now. But now look, now because they were able to have their moment over here, it helped with the transition of these guys over here. Now they're clapping, and you still have your column, but they're framing it out. Because it was even in the number, it's able to be symmetrical in the breakout in the center. This is awesome with the clap. So now look, you still have your feature right here in the front, and everybody's dropped down that has already been affiliated from earlier in the track. And now you have your 5 that is building up. Now they want us to draw our attention there. But notice they didn't drop until they were ready to be seen and featured. And I love that so much. Yeah, and they da-da-da-da, just very simple. They walk. Now, this is an example of they are walking on tempo. So they're choosing to step. Now, are the steps the same? Looks like it. It looks like they had to designate 1 foot. But that's really important though. Like you have to be clear on when you just want it to be a pedestrian, whatever tempo you see fit for your walk is, and then when everybody needs to walk, because sometimes the intention stems from, because personally there's 2 routines I'm cleaning for a competition group with one of the studios I'm with, and there's walks choreographed into the routine, because having so much popping off energy and then just having a walk can speak so much in your heartbeat of dynamics and presence and content, you know, and you don't have to pop off the whole time. Sometimes a simple walk on tempo with everybody speaks just as much volume in the digestibility of that section. You know, you don't want to be too loud for your track. This is our pre-chorus. It's not the breakdown, you know, so then going here and then resetting here with the explosion, but everybody kind of it was a transition. So it was more so everybody got to go in a particular direction, probably to their next formation, but they had to do the same arms. So you had the different directions of the chaoticness, but it was still structured because the upper body was the same. He pops off, you still have your feature. Now everybody's building up. I love that. Now I will say some of them are choosing a more like laid back perspective, and some of them are taking a more protruding their groove more forward in front, and some of them are taking more laid back aesthetic. So that would be something I would take note of, is where is your hinge in your groove, because getting low versus high, and when you're dealing with height, it is a bit trickier to kind of get that clarified, because some people are tall and when they're back, they'll look the same as somebody who's shorter, but they're standing still. So that's a really hard thing to catch, but that's just something I noticed here. That right there, it's so nice to see everybody, and it's clean. Da 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 with the points. That right there, dee. Oh, that's just that sequence is gorgeous. They turn, and then of course they turn, and he is still our feature here. Very nice, slowly coming back up. So we've already seen that progression of the features, but because you have all 13 instead of just 6 or 7, it reads different, it feels more full. And because we're getting near the tail end, you really want to have this climactic experience, which is just wonderful. So there's so, like, I am so, not impressed, inspired by how, whether they did a skeleton crew and it got sent off, and then there's a choreographer that made adjustments for the group or whatever. I love who they picked for this. So there's a really good chance I may know who the choreographer is. I just don't want to say it because I just want to, you know, this is the bee's knees right now. This is wonderful. I love that highlight, but look here, not everybody's arms are the exact same, so that's why this part doesn't feel quite as impactful. Also note some of their arms are being cut off by the letterhead of how they chose to edit it. So it's just little things like that. This is so freaking cool. With the kick, now it's in unison. Everybody, you notice you have your diagonals. This is gorgeous. Look at this. I love being able to make straight lines in the line that they need to be. It's just professional. It shows that they're thinking about 100% of the way through. My one note though is that you see he's on the outside mid, and then I would say he would need to be scooting up just a smidgen because I'm assuming he's on the same line as them. But also when you see the diagonal, you have your 2, he's on the outside, he's in between. He should technically be right here, but I understand that they need to keep this gap open right here. So they would honestly need probably a third, or he would need to be spaced out a little bit more forward. Having this situation here, they're more spaced out. So I get, like, I understand they catered more towards the linear lines here versus the diagonals, but I really appreciate the diagonals that are being had here. With all 13, woohoo! So go do. Now let's take a look here. Hands. I mean, here's the thing. Their overall range of their extremities are really, not range, the content or how they're striking when they hit more staccato and syncopated choreography is beautiful. When you look here, these little things do enhance or can take away from the cleanliness of your unison. One of them has a draping over his face, one is on top of his hat. Look at some of their hips in their pocket is not quite as low. He's looking front, could be because he's the feature. He's also looking front but covering up half his head. He's draping it over the side. You're not even looking at all, draping it down. But some of the hips is more of my focus. Some of them are more lunging forward. Some are in a full second position. Some are carrying more of their weight to the left side. Some are not really hinging over at all. So that would be something to kind of easily clarify is, okay, where's my hinge taking place when I'm dropping into that? And no, it's not because I paused it where I did. That's just, it's unison choreo. That's unison, right? So they need to be, regardless of what they're wearing, you can still check if their hips are dipped or if their hips, where their weight is distributed. And that does affect the overall cleanliness of the routine. Here's the complete side note I need to just be making you guys aware. The fact that I am talking about this routine the way that I am, I talk about routines like this when I'm talking about elite level mega crews. Whenever you're like on the HHI circuit and I go and I look and I observe, and how I adjudicate or how I would justify a score is these are the little discrepancies that separate from an average to above average to superior. This is an above average cleanliness. It is wonderful to look at, and I'm very impressed at the fact that everybody's holding their own and nobody sticks out. Like, I have to put on my adjudicator hat in order for me to provide feedback outside of the obvious. The obvious is not there. It's clean. So now they're making me have to do my job, honestly, you know, to really look into the micro nuances of what possibly may have not made it as clean as it could be. Everything can always be cleaner. You just got to know where to look, you know? So it's just kudos and shout out to them. The fact that I've had to talk so much and we're like 2 minutes and 30 seconds into this, a 30-minute video. I know sometimes I just talk, but I've been talking fast. I've been trying to speak quickly, and it just, ooh, goodness gracious. I'm proud of the time because this can go a lot longer, I'm sure. I love that just the range was nice and clean there. They slid back in. But notice that they all frame towards the outside, that highlight versus all front. So you still have your feature in the center and everybody else branching out to the sides. It's just nice when you have everybody here. Do. Also, another note, some people were looking at their hand, some were not. It's just kind of up to you. But now everybody goes around. You have one feature. He's about to start singing. It's good that he stopped right there so it allows him time to recalibrate before he can sing. Then right there, everybody goes, boom. So that's just my big note for them in this section. Anytime they're dealing with their hand and the hand is the focal point, not everybody's hand is doing the same thing. Or it needs to be more refined in how they're choosing to execute the positioning of the hand. That's really my big note in all of this. But that's such a subtle AF thing. Like, who cares, right? I love that in the drop, and then they built it back up. So now because they have everybody, it rides more full, like I've already said. He chose to go out. They chose to keep it towards their body. So that's really nice. You see the contrast, but you still maintain your feature in the center. Doom. So it was nice. You see it built up. Now it's framed to the outside. That's more of our focus here. And you still have your center point, so you get to see the choreography in its original angle, but then you get to see it in a new refined angle with more people. So it just makes it more full and more enjoyable. Now they're choosing to walk away. Once they're on the side, they're more walking pedestrian, but they are staying on tempo as they go off, so I think that's totally fine. Now look at this beginning. So now you see that we're kind of resetting the beginning, but look how labored they're breathing. That's really hard to control your breathing here. So he's having his moment and he's freezing. That is how he started. I love that. And now you're having your moment. This is just so fun to tie in from the beginning all the way to the end. He pulls them around. Of course, they touch and they turn. And now you have your beginning formation. I think it's the same guy too, who's being featured. I love that. and they're accenting over to the side, bleeding around, not looking front. So you still have the eye contact of your feature. They're framing because it's a group of 4. So it's important, even though when you have a 1-point feature, that it is at least the intention of going in all four corners, or being able to justify a more circular formation looks nice. That right there, boom and drop. That was great that all 4 of them hit it the same way. And then now look, I understand why he is catered more towards, I mean, when I'm looking at it from my right side, their left side. But like, he's trying to justify over here. My one note is that you would need a 5th person in order to make it truly symmetrical. He needs to be directly behind him in order to see, but also you wouldn't really be able to see him. So that's kind of the concessions that were made. I don't know if that was because of this dance practice or whatever. It looks great though. Like I get to see the visual. I get the visual. Yeah, da-da-da-da, very fun. They're walking back on again, having a moment. Now you have your all 4. Now this is still much nicer because you still have your shape, group of 4, and then you have a group of 3, group of 4 over here. That doesn't really quite matter as much, but it's nice that everybody, if anything, it looks like they're in between the windows. And I love that. That's really cool that they're not even, it doesn't even appear that they're super across, but they could be, you know, but... And they run through. I love that they run all the way across, thread through, and then you still have your 4 there, so it doesn't take away from the cleanliness of the transition. They didn't move. Then they go and they pop off. Jump, boom, reset, but notice they're all facing different directions. All of them ended stably. And they go boom, and then boom, accents. Breather moment, so them lowering down, they could be heavily breathing, but it still matches the aesthetic. Not quite as they look down and nice and still. It doesn't call for that. They're switching their weight. They're carrying a more like, I'm just being stable and showcasing presence, not I have to be still for this part. They just understand they're get to be their own presence and then accent the arms and do what is needed. I love that. They bleed it up with the trace. Yeah, so that was really nice. So we did see that originally with our 2 guys, and they bled it through, and then they grabbed, and then they did the trace through. I love that everybody touched, so we can see it all nice and clean here. I love that. Ding, ding. And then they look away. Some of them are looking at their hand. That was probably creative freedom here, where they look, and then they're all looking up to the front. Love that. Then you hear the highlight. That sounds like everybody. So it's nice to see everybody factoring in there. And the march. So it wasn't just a basket run. It was a bounce. But they were low like a basket run, and that created that nice build and that groove that you wanted to get that transition to happen, except for your one person. He was there as your feature, and it was symmetrical. You know why? Because it was even on both sides, because you're operating with a group of 13. Whoop, whoop. That was nice. Bringing it back over, and then they're bleeding it over to all the sides. Roll it down like a little milli rock, but not quite, because it's down on the side versus up at the top. Right there, boom, da, doom, super chill as they're finishing it out. I love that. They all look. You kind of get to hear that twinkling sound, and they're using a hand to do that. That was really nice. And they're all looking at it, and then they all slide away, having just one person, and he kind of gets left behind, and then he moves. Oh, God bless America. That was awesome. Definitely. I mean, I know this one was one of the recommended ones when I did my first comeback with 17, like the first time I ever reacted to them. This one pops up a lot, and it makes sense why. Y'all are making me lose my voice over here, kind of talk about all this, but I loved that. And it's definitely a concept that sits well on them. They can hit it very well, and they have the synchronicity and the cleanliness to be able to justify this concept. Because that's the thing. A lot of groups don't have that. They focus, like, their vocals are one thing, but their dance is still not where they need to be. Either it's the choreographic team, the dancers, and how they perform, and that's okay. Not every group needs to be this powerhouse. Look how intricate it is. But I do know with Gen 5 and Gen 4, that started to become like a really big thing. I know that. But personally for me, groups I think should have different colors, right? In the sense of what they're known for, what they can be good at, what they represent. You know, because some people who really care about dancing, they're going to tailor to groups like this. And groups that really care about the singing and the serenading of the singing, they're going to cater more towards ballad singers, you know? And people who care about looks, you kind of pick your poison on these types of groups, you know, but this was phenomenal. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had an absolute blast on this one. This one is my favorite at this point in time as I'm recording. This one was wonderful. I do know I may have a new favorite by the end of watching all of these, but that one was pretty hard to beat for me because I love the concept, the overall aesthetic. I love the choices that were made, the framing, the storytelling. I loved the utilization of how they committed to their character, and it was a different type of commitment than what we had seen previously from them. Definitely looking forward to watching more. I'm Jess. If you want to see more 17 content, I have so much of it on Patreon, but also it's going to be released on YouTube as comebacks occur. And if you want to see more dance content in general, I have that on YouTube and Patreon. I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.